Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1111. That's 1111. That's 1111 of Toronto Mic'd. Proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. StickerU.com. Create custom stickers, labels, tattoos, and decals for your home and your business. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. Electronic Products Recycling Association. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. Ridley Funeral Home. Pillars of the community since 1921. And Canna Cabana. The lowest prices on cannabis guaranteed. Over 100 stores across the country. Learn more at cannacabana.com. Today, returning to Toronto Mic'd is Gare Joyce.
Good day.
That's your intro. That's your good day.
How are we doing for time? That was like an extraordinary intro.
Do they have Canna Cabana locations in Kingston, Ontario?
I wouldn't know. That's Susan's department. She does the edibles. I'm
text you here. Yeah, she says, of course. Yeah. So shout out to Canna Cabana. How are you, Gare Joyce?
I am well.
I don't need to call Ridley Funeral Home for a pickup.
Since I was on last, I guess that was.
Okay, you want this right off the top? I like to do this anyway. Okay, so this is your. You've made like little appearances on like group Zooms and things.
Yeah.
You once opened with a joke. Who was the joke about? Who was the story about?
Oh, good God.
Do you remember? Anyway, I think the Zoom room was in shock by the time you finished the
that
story.
was St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
Right, with the identical brothers.
Okay. Yeah. So we won't count those things, but we won't count your stand-up at TMLX, whatever. We'll talk about that later. But your first appearance on Toronto Mic'd, this is when I met you for the first time. And I can't remember if it was Brad Fay or Damien Cox. Do you know who told me I should talk to Gare? Do you know which of those two gentlemen it might have been?
Oh, it was Schultz.
Oh my God, it's Schultz. It is Schultz.
Yeah.
It is Schultz. Okay. David Schultz. Okay, we'll talk about him.
And you were
later.
Gare who? Right?
Yeah, I was Gare. No, literally. Gare who? Is he one of the Garys? Was there a third Gary? And that was January 2018. But you know, when David Schultz
when you had pneumonia.
Did I? I can't remember now.
You were sick when extraordinarily sick.
Walking pneumonia. You're right, but I never even missed a bike ride. It was one of these weird pneumonias. I took pills or something. Okay. January 2018. I know you want to crack that open on the mic, but let me set this up by saying that was episode 301. Now we're at 1111.
Oh my gosh.
I wrote for the description at the time, Mike chats with Sportsnet's, we'll talk about that in a minute, Sportsnet's Gare Joyce about his career as a sports writer, novelist, shout out to Jason Priestley, and stand-up comic, shout out to David Schultz, before they play and discuss his... So I was who the hell is this guy? I said, I'll have him on, but he's going to have to kick out the jams because I don't know who this is. Like, you kicked out the jams in your debut.
Yes, I did.
Very rare. Crack that Great Lakes beer open on the mic.
Yeah, I'm dehydrated here. I'm going to...
Okay, not quite on the mic. Maybe.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm going to crack mine on the mic since you don't follow directions very well. Okay. So what do you got there?
I've got a lager.
Okay,
Great
people
Lakes
love that
lager. Oh, there we go.
All right.
You're practiced at this.
They stopped making Sunnyside for the summer. Like, this is a summer IPA that they make, and they don't make it in the winter. So this might be like one of the last cans.
Limited edition.
Yeah. So cheers to you.
Cheers. Great to see you.
Honestly, we've gone to like events together. Okay. Wolfpack matches.
Oh, God bless the Wolfpack. That was such a fun sports venue. A great great entertainment, great value. It was so much fun.
Well, for me, it was the best value ever because
Ever.
all I could drink.
Yep.
And what do you call it? Field. I was on the field, like in the end zone or whatever they call it in rugby. I guess they're end zones. But like, I paid nothing for those, and I had all year. I had season tickets to go on the field and drink all I wanted. And you ready? So that sounds amazing because I paid nothing, right? But they said you can invite 3 friends to each match. Like it was me plus 3 every single. And on beautiful Saturday, I'd bike to Lamport. Is it Lamport? Yeah.
Yes.
And it was amazing. Like, and you were one of my guests one week, and it was amazing.
That is true. And I was recovering still from my bout with pneumonia, and mine was bacterial and left me in hospital for the better part of 17 days. And I was fainting dead away in the heat when we went to that game.
Well, you had a
hat
on, right?
Yeah, but still.
And I remember you had a layer of like sunscreen on.
Yes. I burn just a Hibernian
because you're
thing.
Irish.
Yes. And anyways, but I was feeling pretty weak. That was one of my first ventures out.
No, I remember like distinctly, like I saw you there and I texted Brad Jones at Ridley Funeral Home and I said, I got a warm one for you.
Yeah, there we go.
I got a lead for you. Okay. But that was not the last time you were on Toronto Mike here in the studio because April 2019.
Yes.
That was episode 458. So that's why you got the tattoo that says 458 on it. Mike catches up with Gare Joyce, who tells
10 stories.
10 great stories, including the reason he won't be heard on Bob McCown's Primetime Sports. That's one of the great moments.
Which almost got me fired for telling that.
Tell me more about that, because then I want to ask you the big question everybody's wondering about you and your professional life.
Well, more about Bob McCown. I really don't have anything more about Bob McCown. He and I would pass each other in the hall, and he'd always give sort of a sheepish hi. My desk at Sportsnet was maybe 50 feet from his studio, so I'd see him all the time, and he'd never have me on. And the other day, well, what am I saying? The other day, I found it the other day. I have a friend request on Facebook from Bob McCown.
Wow.
Yes, and it's I'm going to get it laminated for its 3rd birthday. I don't think that one's going to come to pass.
So for those who, at this point, everybody's paused the episode and gone to 458 to hear the story.
There you go.
But can you give us like the Reader's Digest version?
Yes.
Like a greatest hits here.
Okay. This is the single. Right. The other things like Ingata Davida, right? But
that's for bathroom breaks.
Yeah. No, McCown had me on the day that Gretzky was traded to St. Louis, and he said, "Could anyone have an ego that big about Wayne Gretzky?" And I said, with an ego like that, he should have gone into sports talk radio. And he didn't talk to me the rest of the episode.
Really?
And never had me back. I'd done the show a few times.
But that's a funny line. Like how sensitive is he? I like that line. And it's not necessarily a McCown shot. It's a shot at your profession there.
For him, I thought it was an asset, not a liability, right? I thought that was,
isn't that part of his persona that he's got a huge ego? Like he's a curmudgeon who thinks he's the greatest. Like this is part of his mask he wears.
Well, really talk about false modesty, right? Bob McCown being wounded by suggestion that he has an ego. So I won't be on his podcast either.
Oh no. Who's doing that with him? John Shannon.
Yes.
What's your relationship like with John Shannon?
Pretty good. Staggeringly, John Shannon's younger than me. Like people would never put that together. No, I get along pretty well with John.
That is amazing. Okay, so this is like when you find out that Jack Armstrong is younger than Leo Rowdens. Like it's that kind of a deal.
Yes, that's it. Although I have not shaved in a few days, so there is gray here. But I'm frequently sort of mistaken for being somewhat younger, mostly because I have hair, and there isn't much of it that's gray.
I mean, we're gonna get to it later, but I had Dave Bedini on the show yesterday, and I think I mentioned you in passing because you were coming up. We'll talk about that. I totally screwed up my schedule this week, but anyway. So I knew Gare Joyce. I knew you were on today, obviously, and then he was talking about like how you inspired him, and I actually was looking at Bedini, and I'm thinking like, okay, but aren't you like older than Gare Joyce?
No, no, I have.
He looks a lot older than you. Like, well, he's got the big white beard going on. But
yeah, I got a late start in newspapering and whatnot. Funnily enough, I think I sold my first freelance story when I was 28. I went back to school after working.
But what were you doing before that?
Among other things,
coal miner?
No, I was a clerk at the LCBO.
Okay. Like at 1 Yonge Street there? Like, is that, or is this somewhere?
I did work at Queens Quay. Okay. Yes. The big store.
Yes, right,
yeah.
Right.
I worked there and at Parliament Street.
Okay.
Parliament in Winchester.
Okay.
And I also worked driving a forklift at Coca-Cola, and on the side did some cement finishing with my friend, and I was a working guy, and I had dropped out of journalism school. I was 5 years in a 3-year program, and I had sort of decided, you know what, I'll just work. I'm fine with it. And then at 28, I thought, take a shot at writing, and sold a story at 28. But so all the people I came up with, I was older than, and they're looking at now, and we look like we're awash at this point.
So may I ask your age? Is this top secret information?
No. Next Sunday, I'm 66.
Okay, yeah, I would have guessed 10 years younger. Then I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass, Mr. Joyce, but although it's the same. So you're aging well. At the same time, I did call Ridley Funeral Home when I saw you at that. So you can kind of look at it two-way. You're either on death's door.
My father worked for a funeral outfit. He actually sold his business to a funeral home, McKinnon and Bowes. Toronto's best embalmers.
Well, second best, actually. After Ridley
They
Funeral
did the embalming for all these funeral homes. They were like the depot.
Okay, because I'm rewatching 6 Feet Under.
Yeah.
And there's the evil competitor is buying up all the independent funeral homes. And they have that situation where all the funeral homes share some centralized embalming thing.
That's what this was. And my father was a delivery man. In retirement, he picked up dead bodies. I
like
went
in a hearse, like he drove a hearse?
Well, it was
like
just a van.
A refrigerated van, probably.
I wouldn't doubt that Brian would know my father, or certainly Brad. I wouldn't doubt that his family would know my father. This is going back.
Okay, well, we'll find out. Okay. So many questions here, but that was the last time you were here, April 2019, and I think I did see you at a Wolfpack match that summer. I think summer of 2019. Yes. And Wolfpack, what's the official status? Completely DOA, right? They're gone. They're at Ridley Funeral Home right now.
They are
getting embalmed.
One of the strange things is the last practice that they ever had, I walked with their coach through the middle of their practice. I was shadowing the coach for a feature that we were going to run the next spring with this started.
Spring 2020.
Yeah.
When COVID happened.
And so anyways, I've got like all these Australians and Yorkshiremen and Samoans and whatever, like running all around me, and I'm terrified, right? Like if I take one backward step, I'm gonna get leveled. So
can I ask? Because yes, COVID killed this franchise, I guess, but amongst many others actually. But a lot of death in this episode. But gentleman's name, I want to say Sonny Williamson. Is that his name?
Yes, Sonny Jim Williamson.
Okay, so what was the story exactly? I only read the press, which was that we had signed this huge name in the sport. Yeah.
You know what? I have one friend, an Aussie named Steve Brown, who's a rugby league fan and is much more dialed up on all of this. And by the time the Wolfpack signed Williamson, he was a bit of an act more than a force.
Like
and
past his prime.
Past his prime, and in Australia, he was in these rugby boxing, celebrity boxing events and whatever, and he'd gone back and forth between league and union and riled the fans of both. And anyways, he was signed as a name. I don't know that. I think even in the games that the Wolfpack got in the UK,
he was a non-factor.
I don't think he played in at least a couple.
Okay. But yeah, rest in peace, Wolfpack. I had a great time at those matches.
So much fun.
All right, lots of ground to cover, but you mentioned, I think I mentioned that I was screwing up the schedule. So this week, when I originally scheduled you for today, and we're going to talk about your move to Kingston and what else you did today and all these things. But when I first booked this, you were the meat in my Dan Hill John Biner sandwich. This was the original schedule. So it was Dan Hill, then some Gare Joyce, and then some John Biner. You're excited about the John Biner?
Oh, absolutely. I was a huge John Biner fan, and I loved all the celebrity impressionists back in the 60s and into the 70s. Frank Gorshin, Fred Travellina, and John Biner was right there. Gorshin was my best, and I'm sure that if you ask John Biner about Frank Gorshin, he'll he'll rave about his skills. I don't know how he'd feel about him personally, but I love that. And there just isn't like celebrity impressions anymore. Maybe since Kevin Spacey was disgraced, but he was a master impressionist. He was, but I loved that bit of the business.
So he's tomorrow. So tomorrow, But so originally you were the meat in the Dan Hill John Biner sandwich, and then you became, actually things really got changed around, and then you became the meat in my the Dave Bedini. Then there's a Ron Hawkins, Chris Brown, Stephen Stanley sandwich, and then here's how it was. I thought that was before you, I thought I was meeting with those three gentlemen this morning, and then you were going to do the afternoon. Mm-hmm. It turns out those three gentlemen are tomorrow morning, and then John Biner's in the afternoon. So kind of a fun fact, and I thought it was almost happening. We talked in the past about how you look like Steve O'Bannon. Is that his name, or Steve Bannon?
Steve Bannon.
Yeah, not like Ed O'Bannon. Okay, so Steve Bannon and you have a similar look, like this Irish
Irish 60-ish. Yes.
Right.
Snub-nosed.
But there is another gentleman in the zeitgeist that could be like a doppelganger for you. And you've been told this before. But you look a bit like Stephen Stanley from Lowest of the Low.
Absolutely. Yes, my friend Steve Brown does mention that. He's a huge Lowest of the Low fan. So that's who I heard it from first.
Okay, and this is I'm now showing this like a tiny little. This is how close we came. We came so close to you and Stephen Stanley being in the same seat on the same day.
Oh my God!
It almost happened. He's tomorrow morning, but he was going to be here this morning, and
maybe I should come tomorrow morning. Right? I'll sub in for him and see if you notice.
Can you sing? You got a good singing voice?
No,
okay, you're out. No, we need a good singer for that. Okay, but it's kind of funny that your doppelganger visits. And the funny thing is, Steve Bannon is booked for next week. So just kidding.
But funny thing is that you talking about me being the meat in the sandwich, and I haven't had meat since 1974.
And that's why I made this is true story. I said Gare Joyce is in my calendar. I made a special order yesterday with Palma Pasta to make sure. No joke. In my freezer right now is a vegetarian lasagna. You'll eat that, right? Or
yes, I will.
So because there's cheese in there. I wasn't sure if you. Okay. Yep. So no meat.
There we go.
Vegetarian lasagna from Palma Pasta is going home with you today. And where the hell is home these days?
Home is in the west end of Kingston.
So by the way, another fun fact, I guess, is that Chris Brown lives on Wolf Island.
Oh my!
So what? And I think Stephen Stanley might be moving there. I'm going to find out tomorrow. But tell me again, as a guy who does want to visit Wolf Island, but Wolf Island is it Kingston or is it different from Kingston? It's right there. Right?
It's a ferry ride away, like a 10-minute ferry ride. That's actually where I played my first round of golf in 19 years last month.
Did it ruin a good walk?
No, you know what? It went shockingly well. I had gone to the driving range 8 times in the 2 weeks leading up to it, so I'd done some work. But Wolf Island it's a curious place. There are no police on Wolf Island.
Oh, that's why the musicians like it there.
Absolutely, and last call, very flexible, right? Because the police have to come over on the ferry,
right?
And the guys working the ferry know to just who to give notice to. So it's getting a little bit developed, more than locals are comfortable with. And I'm not considering myself a local yet, but I'm getting. But I can read the room on that one. And lots of American money buying up hot properties out there.
Okay, interesting. I know that Chris Brown he has an old hotel or something that they record at and everything, and it sounds cool when I hear about it. Anyway, like there's some kind of artist commune there or something. Yeah,
you know what? There's a couple other islands as well. I have a buddy who is on Howe Island. Which is smaller. Wolf Island is actually huge. We go over there during the winter to spot snowy owls.
Okay.
That
sounds cool.
Yeah, there are flocks of them over there.
Oh.
So we go over fairly regularly. I've taken my bike over there a couple of times, but it's a fair size. The others. Amherst Island, Howe Island, they're smaller and they have more of a quaint factor. And there's a few too many deep-pocketed boaters who are ruining the local charm. And it's a historic place. I mean, you've got buildings that go back to the 1850s and whatnot. It is worth seeing. And good on those guys for moving there.
So tell me, why does a lifelong Toronto guy, why does he move to Kingston? And I'm referring to you, Gare Joyce. What are you doing in Kingston?
You know what? I just sort of got worn out by traffic, and all my favorite places were disappearing. Like all the landmarks.
What was your neighborhood of when you were here?
We were living in the annex, but that was mostly for Susan's convenience, for getting to work, and for my convenience too. But I think we originally moved there when she was working at Queen's Park. I could walk to Sportsnet's offices.
Where exactly is that? Because I know we referenced Sportsnet's offices.
One Mount Pleasant, and Bloor.
Okay.
So I had a 20-minute walk, and Susan was walking down to Queen's Park, writing speeches for Dalton McGuinty.
So none of this moved, because I've been hearing from people that moved out of the city to smaller cities or even rural locations during the pandemic. This was sort of a trend.
We did that.
Right. So no regrets.
No.
Not that we've actually ended the pandemic. We just decided to pretend like it ended, I think. But no regrets. You love Kingston.
Yeah.
Do you miss Toronto though, or is it no? You got a new home now, and
every time Susan and I come here,
you say, "Thank God we left."
We always remark that we don't particularly miss it.
Well, we miss you, but I'm glad you're here. But so what brought you? You didn't drive from Kingston, or maybe you did. Let's get the real talk here. What brought you to Toronto today?
Susan's outfit, the Ontario Medical Association, was having their big quarterly meeting, and so that's sort of we overnighted here, and I went and saw my GP and did a little housekeeping, and I got to clear out my desk at Sportsnet.
Don't bury the lead here, Gare. Don't bury the lead here. I thought you might say that. Okay.
That's my method, right? Burying the lead. That's what I do.
Let's dive into this a little bit.
Sure.
I don't care how uncomfortable it makes you, but clearing out your desk at Sportsnet.
Yep.
Why are you what happened? Why are you no longer at Sportsnet? This is breaking news to a lot of people because you didn't like tweet, "Oh, I'm leaving Sportsnet." There was no public declaration, as I recall.
No, you know what? There were a round of layoffs and downsizing, and putting it through a hot wash and putting it through the dryer. Fewer jobs to go around. I'm in my 60s. They want to do different things as far as editorial goes, and yeah, I'm a casualty in that, and with a bunch of other people, and I understand their thinking. Like if someone was gonna if they were gonna have to lose someone in our department, I'm the sort of obvious one. So did I see it coming? Somewhat, Did I think that it would happen earlier during, the height of COVID when the traffic on our website, and there's no sports events like
Right.
that's, hard to write about sports with no sports. So I thought maybe it would happen earlier than it did. But to be frank, when did I see working there till? I didn't see myself being Red Fisher filing, from a Habs game at age 85. I wasn't going to be
Or
that
Milton
guy.
L, if you want to get it to like a local.
Yeah. And those guys were doing the daily grind. I mean, I would like to do more feature stuff and a book here and there, and I still want to write, but it's really not a fit for me or a fit for them at Sportsnet. So, it's no hard feelings. I get it. And onward and upward, I like my last day at Sportsnet. I had a story in the New York Times. I'm doing something for The Athletic now, and doing some men's health stuff, and trying to pitch a couple of book projects, and I broke away and did this Audible stuff, right?
Which we'll definitely dive into that for sure.
Yeah.
But when were you notified that your final days were coming at Sportsnet?
I got a read of it a week, the week of the Stanley Cup final starting.
Oh, okay.
And it was the layoffs were the day after the last game of the Stanley Cup final.
So another name that recently announced he was no longer with Sportsnet.
Yeah.
And then I learned that he was notified in July, and then we only learned about it when he went public last week or whatever. Is Stephen Brunt?
Yeah.
So So are you caught up in the same wave of cost cutting?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think you're the two best writers Sportsnet has. You two guys.
Yeah.
Not that Brunt ever wrote anywhere.
Yeah, I have no problem with that whatsoever. Funnily enough, no. Stephen hadn't written a ton in the last couple of years. When I went to Sportsnet, it was to work on the magazine, editing and writing.
Right.
And Stephen was writing a bi-weekly column for them at that point. I think he did a couple features over the years, but I think one of the things about this business is you might look... I know that when I went to Sportsnet, they said, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, 4 to 8 stories a year, right? And I'd like to edit.
Right.
I saw a role with the magazine and with the website, but I saw it largely as editing, and I was leaning sort of more towards 4 than 8, and about 2 months in, the editor-in-chief, Steve Mage, said, "We need your writing." And so I did some coaching of writers, and I was a resource, but in terms of actual editing and that. So I ended up in a job different than the one that I signed up for. And I think when Stephen went to Sportsnet, I think maybe he had anticipated doing more writing. I can't speak for him on that. But
he has, we've exchanged emails, and he does want to return to Toronto Mike, so I will ask the man himself all these questions. But it is interesting to me that, the magazine's been dead a while now, but like, every time
since 2016.
26, yeah, that is, yeah. So, and I got to say, I don't find myself on the Sportsnet website doing much reading. I'll be quite honest with you, but I don't know why that is the case. But okay, but you and Brunt, I always felt were the two greatest writers that the entire Sportsnet operation had at their disposal. And I'll just say this, because Stephen Brunt is pretty,
You're going to have no more writers on from Sportsnet now. You know that.
We'll see about that. But I got to call it like it is. But there are a lot of other great writers, but those are the two I think were the very best. But whereas like Brunt, I think when you say Stephen Brunt, the listenership knows exactly who I'm talking about. Like, oh yeah, Stephen Brunt. He wrote for the Globe, and he was did that thing for the Olympics that those essays we all enjoyed in 2010. And then he's the guy from Sportsnet. He's on the radio. He's with Tim and Sid. Blah 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 blah. He's another guy who had his falling out with Bobcat, but then they kissed and made up.
How many times?
Yeah.
That was like, they were like Liz and Dick. Right?
I have a clip because Brunt came on during one of the downtimes when he was no longer part of Primetime Sports. And I actually I just said, would you ever do a radio show with Bob McCown again? And he said, no, he doesn't see it happening. And then I don't know when, 6 months later, they announced he was the new co-host of Primetime Sports. So go figure. But all this is to say that I think when you talk to the average, the great unwashed listener of Toronto Mike, then you say, hey, Gare Joyce, I'm always surprised, but I'm like that as well, where it's like, okay, I don't know that name necessarily, but I will just say this. Every time I read something you wrote, I think this is way too good to be, it's usually transcends sports. That's probably part of the glory, but it's way too good. Like you are an amazing writer. I say write more. I got no idea who's buying, who's cutting the checks or whatever. I'm going to talk about the voice of Charlie Brown in a minute, but you are an excellent writer, Gare Joyce, like second to none. You are exceptional.
How sensitive is this mic? Can it hear me blushing? Like, well, no. I recorded 11. 11. What's that? 1,111 times. Yeah. Sometimes I tell people I like this, I like that. I'm not bullshitting you. What would be the point of me doing a whole 5-minute thing on what a great writer you are? I challenge anyone to go read a piece by Gare Joyce and come back to me and tell me if it's not top shelf. I'm staggered,
But I can't hire you at TMDS because I have no budget.
No. No, I really appreciate that. I mean, I do think when people ask me what I do, I never say that I'm a sports writer, and my friends know, don't say it, right? Like, just don't say it. I've written a lot of stuff about matters other than sports, and I think that I sort of need to do that to get grounded, and so I just say that I'm a writer.
Well, we should remind people who haven't heard, but everybody should go back to the old Gare Joyce episodes, especially the first one where he kicked out the Jams. But remind people that Private Eyes, which was a show starring Jason Priestley from 90210 fame, that's based on your books.
That is true.
But that show got canceled, right?
It did not get picked up for a seventh season.
That's a nicer way to say it.
Six seasons, and everyone thought it was coming back for a seventh. It had been the top rated show in Canada for 6 years, and another one of those businessy deals where Global is going out and trying to make a deal and acquire another outfit, and they had issues probably with the budget and things like that, and they did not get renewed, and there was talk of sort of a Murdoch Mysteries switch of networks, and
Right.
I don't know where that is at. I know that Cindy Sampson, the female lead, that she Angie Everett in the series, that she was pregnant, and so when they were going to start shooting season 7, when it was scheduled to start shooting. So I think there was a hiatus that was going to be there no matter, but I do think it's probably not going to, maybe they'll have a comeback movie or something. I don't know.
Well,
movie.
what's the community line? 6 seasons in a movie.
Yes, yes. Something I know that Jason always said, if we get to 100 episodes, we're gold, and they got to 62 or something like that. So,
And you've become friends with Jason, right? Is he a bud?
Jason and I
Will he answer a text if you text him?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Jason's come out to see me do stand-up, and
yeah, that's a bud.
Yeah, and
that's torturous.
I just carved him too. Oh my God, give it up for Jason Priestley, a proud former Canadian, right? Like it's just on and on, right? Anyways, Jason, great, but he was the first name on our list when we couldn't get Kirk Cameron, right? I just busted him to pieces, and he was like such a good sport about it.
How you still doing? Do you stand up in Kingston?
I do. Yes.
So where and how often? Like, when does this magic happen?
Oh God, I did a fundraiser. I think was the last one, but it was like with a couple of like national headliners. It was a fun gig.
Who? Name these people. I'll tell you if they're headliners or not.
Well, they're headliners at Absolute and the like. Rob Pugh, and who's done JFL and all of this, and Ryan Denis, who's my buddy in Kingston. Okay. He could be the mayor of Kingston if he ran for office. They're both really good comedians. There's a little community of comics out there, and there's shows that you can drop and open mics that you can do. So, I mean, to get out and do something weekly, that's where I'd like to be. I've started writing a little more comedy over the summer. Having a little more time to myself.
And lest we forget that you and David Schultz did stand up at a TMLX event at Great Lakes Brewery.
You don't want to forget it, right?
Well, I recorded it.
Yeah,
Somewhere
I know.
in the feed.
If
people want to find it, they can find it. It's in the Toronto Mike feed. But I remember Mike Wilner was there, and you made a Wilner joke or two that I don't think
he was doing the weight loss commercials at that point, right? Or I think they took that off. They thought maybe it wasn't good for the brand.
I love Mike Wilner, so I have nothing.
I do too.
Bad to say. But I want to make sure. Like, does he still talk to you, or are you haven't cross paths with him?
Honest to God,
star now.
Like one of the deals in stand up is if you're going to do that, you have to look at the guy when you're saying it, and his face just sort of collapsed.
I saw it because when you did it, and I looked over where I was, and I felt bad for Mr. Wilner. I know that all's fair in love and comedy, but I just wondered if he was going to pull a McCown on you there. But
no, I think I've only really seen him once or twice since then, and it didn't come up. And now, not that I'm going to apologize. It's stand up.
Well, it's funny now that I think about it. Wilner's on that list of people McCown won't let on primetime sports. So I guess it's you, it's Wilner. There's a lot of Jerry Howarth is on that list. Just some greats on that list.
I am proud to be a member of that fraternity.
So I promised the audience 90 minutes on Bob McCown. So
yeah, no. Did I tell you about the last? Like I told you and the listeners about if an ego that big, he should go on talk radio.
Yeah.
Did I tell you when he had me on for Jim Kelly?
Do it again, brother. We're playing the hits here today.
So it was the first anniversary of Jim Kelly's death. And Jim Kelly was my best bud.
And not the quarterback, everybody. But he is from Buffalo.
He is from Buffalo, and the street outside the Buffalo News is named after Jim Kelly. His sports writer, Jim Kelly, the one beside the hockey arena. And he was cut loose from being McCown's co-host for a few years. He was cut loose, and like a week later, diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. So that's a bad one to get. I don't recommend it. Anyways, Jim came back on the air and did a few spots. I think McCown felt sort of sheepish about the timing. Then Jim died. I guess it was Thanksgiving 2011, American Thanksgiving 2011. And so in November of the following year, McCown had me to come on to talk about Jim. And my line in it was, it wasn't that Jim had class, because class is something that you can have, something you can aspire to. Jim had grace. That's a different thing. Grace makes you feel good about being a friend. And grace is something you can't aspire to. Now that sounds really profound, except if you look at it, it's in the second person. Right? Like it's actually something you, Bob McCown, can aspire to. It was so subtle. And
Wow.
so it almost needed a footnote or, an explainer or something like that. But it just flew, of course, across the
Well, you were
studio.
you're playing 3D chess, and that man's playing checkers. So.
There you go.
But what before since I mentioned the Bobcat again, and I've never met the Bobcat. In fact, as you might know, I invited him to be my special guest for episode 500 of this little podcast. I said, "Oh, that's a big mile." It's like not quite like 1111. I saved that for Gare Joyce. That's a wicked number. But 500, I said, "Oh, big milestone." Bobcat. I'm going to talk about that nickname in a minute. Bobcat would be a great guest. Bobcat, would you be my guest for episode 500? And it was the most ridiculous thanks but no thanks in public Twitter, too. And he didn't even tag me on it. It was like, your followers think I'm a dinosaur, so I'm not coming on. And I'm still scratching my head about the whole thing. My followers think you're a dinosaur, because I don't remember ever dragging them. But
I think he's 2 years older than me, right? But maybe 3 years older than me.
Well, anyway, shout out to Bobcat. On that note, I loved your story about the nickname Bobcat. Can you just... then we're going to move on. I want to talk about the Audible series because they're great. But the nickname Bobcat. So if I remember correctly, and I'm going to let you tell it, but it was that he claims that this is something people call him, but he doesn't call himself Bobcat. Maybe you tell this greatest hit one more time, because I absolutely adore this one.
So an editor that I worked with at Random House was editing a book that I was working on, my scouting book, and Future Greats and Heartbreaks was my book. And McCown did a book with Dave Naylor from TSN, and it was 100 pieces of wit and wisdom from Bob McCown. Bob McCown did absolutely no writing in it. In fact, when he was on the air, someone asked him about, I don't know if it was about Slovakia being the best hockey nation or something like that, some outrageous contrarian point, and he goes, "Remind me what I wrote." Anyways, my editor recounted this story to me and said that he was talking about promoting the book, marketing it, ads that they could run, and it was like, "Here, I'll pitch you. Bobcat says, that was going to be the display." And Bob McCown goes, "No, I never use Bobcat. That is out of bounds." Verboten. People that know me know that you can't use Bobcat. And my chastened editor, just walked away. And a week later, he called the McCown residence, and the then wife of Bob McCown picked up, and my editor said, "Could I speak to Bob, please?" And She said, Bob's not here, but you can try emailing him. He goes, oh, what email should I use? And she said, his email is bobcat@fan590.com.
Honestly, it's too funny because even now, if you follow Mr. McCown on Twitter, you follow at Fadu Bobcat. Like his email address, which we can presume he created, his Twitter account, which we know he created, have Bobcat in it. That's why I love that story. That's like, in a nutshell, that's what we're dealing with here.
I don't know that we're getting closer to having him come on your podcast.
Oh, that ship sailed. It's fine. It's
Okay.
This is all fair game stuff. So, okay. Listen, we're not going to talk about that. Anyway, never mind. Actually, I'm not even going to say what I'm going to say. But I do want to touch on some points. I have audio from your two excellent Audible audio series.
Yes.
Audible
Originals is what they're called.
And Audible, of course, is owned by some little outfit called Amazon, right?
That's right.
So some mom and pa shop. Good for them. I'm fighting the game against these guys, okay? Shout out to Jeff Bezos, okay. So there's two series, both great. We're going to dive into them, but I have some quick hits we have to do here. One is we talked about what a great writer you are. And it sounds like you're doing some writing it sounds like you said Athletic. So is that just like a freelance gig where you get X dollars per thing? Like, how does that work?
I'm just doing one thing for them right now. Something that I had been working on for a while and something that I'm hoping to develop into a book project.
Well, I will just tell the people at Athletic, some of whom I'm friendly with, that you would be ideal, for a longer term deal or something with you, because you're such a good writer, and that the Athletic needs good writers, and I feel like that's a marriage right there. Okay, but enough. I'm not your agent. Just pretend to be one on podcasts. But you wrote a piece that you apparently could not sell, and this piece ended up in my inbox. And I ended up throwing it on TorontoMike.com because you gave me permission to do so. Yeah. And it was excellent. It was brilliant. And it was about the actor who voiced Charlie Brown in the cartoons.
Peter Robbins is his name.
Peter Robbins. And it's hosted on TorontoMike.com as we speak. But I'm reading this thing. It is so good. You wrote this about Peter Robbins, who you developed a relationship with, you had a friendship with. And I urge people to read it. But my biggest question is, how come we live in a world where you couldn't find anyone? Because I gave you, I'm going to give you lasagna and Great Lakes beer. And by the way, before I forget, I'm going to give you a flashlight from Ridley Funeral Home for that piece. If I pull that out, this will actually work. I'm telling you, this thing you can see in the dark. This is the magic of Ridley Funeral Home. So that's for you. And the Canna Cabana cozy is also yours. And I owe you a Toronto Mike sticker, okay? Love the people at Sticker U. But this is what I gave you.
I would have parked closer if I knew I was.
Why do we live in a world where nobody would pay for this brilliant piece about the Peter Robbins who passed away? Just explain it to me as a guy who's never received a penny for his writings.
It's a hard one to position. I think the death of a lot of literary mags or arts mags or general interest magazines and things like that. I mean, it's a magazine piece is what it is. And
there's not many magazines left.
I was here in a boom period for it, and I'm here to observe the death of it. So shout out to Ridley.
Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. Now, it's interesting, the same conference. So St. Joseph Media bought up a lot of those old Rogers magazines, a lot of them. And it's funny, so this last couple of weeks, I've been chatting a lot with some guy named Mark Weisblood. I don't know if you know that name, but so his 1236 he was receiving. I have the number. I will not reveal it in public forums here, but he was getting money from St. Joseph's Media for his 1236 newsletter and for working with them, and that all came to an end, I guess, at the end of August 2022. Right. So now he's independent, but he keeps the branding and he does his thing. So he, you know the story because he's here for 3 hours every month, but. For sure, yeah, the whole magazine thing and what it was and what it is. So simply, you said you had a piece in the New York Times recently. How did you submit an idea? And because I just had, who did I have over? I had Hannah Sung over here, and she just had a piece in the New York Times, which is very impressive to me. But tell me, how does that come to be that you could be in the New York Times?
The New York Times, I have Shauna Richer to thank. She was at the Globe when I was at the Globe in the mid-'90s, and she was a younger writer because everyone's younger, and she was a younger writer, and I tried to do a mitzvah now and then and mentor her a bit, and you be good to everyone because eventually someone like that ends up as an editor at the New York Times.
And also, why be an asshole? Like, it's just nice. It feels better to be a good person, right?
Yeah, by default, for sure.
Right. So that sounds like this person helped get you in the New York Times there.
Yeah, I had done a couple pieces before, but for the op-ed page of the New York Times, and I've known people working there over the years. It wasn't something I could really pursue when I was at Sportsnet. That's a conflict. And it was not something I could pursue when I was at ESPN before that, because that's a conflict. So I was able to get permission to write stuff for the op-ed page, so long as it wasn't the sports pages of the New York Times when I was at Sportsnet.
Gotcha. Cool. Quick hits, like I said here. How is David Schultz doing? We're going to talk about him in more detail in a moment because he is the voice of one of your 2 Audible series that we're going to talk about. And spoiler alert, he does a kick-ass job. Like, I can't imagine any other voice doing it now.
That's my casting of him, by the way. Like, they want to get a professional voice artist, and I said, look, I have the guy. It's his natural voice.
Okay, I'm going to put a pin in it, actually, because I'm going to get to it in deeper, because I had questions about, like, how long did it take Schultz to do that? That's unbelievable. But okay, so hold on to that one there for a minute. Sure. Moose Grumpy wrote in and said, when are you attending a TMLX again? You owe her a beer.
I know. I was in Quebec for this last one.
TMLX 10, TMLX.
I'm going to do everything I can to be at the next one.
Yeah, that Kingston, that does kind of make it difficult living in Kingston.
I was in Quebec.
That's even further. Yeah. That's even further. My daughter phoned me this morning from Quebec, so there you go. She's living in Montreal right now, which is cool. Okay, do you get along with Stephen Brunt? Like, is he somebody that would answer your text? Are you friendly with him?
Yeah, we don't hang out. Let's put it that way. I mean, yeah.
You're not hanging out at Woody's Point?
Yeah, not my deal. But no, I mean, I think people think there's animus there. It's like, like we don't have much in common, quite frankly.
Okay. And I know we did cover how Schultz doing, but like is retirement agreeing with him?
Oh, go ask the oysters, right? Schultz, I think, spent the vast majority of the summer and now into the fall in PEI. So, he seems to be taking it all in stride. Although he did a couple pieces for the New York Times as well. So, I don't know that Dave is like me. I feel like I have a need to write, and Dave sometimes feels like there are occasions he can write. So,
but the original, so this right now, this episode we're doing now, the original blueprint had you and Schultze on together.
Yes. Yeah. And we just could not. Yeah. He was just so elusive. I was trying to be flexible, to promote the Audible thing. I thought,
right.
The 2 of us together.
I think there's a tweet out there for me if you want to, out there somewhere about me reuniting you with Schultze on this program, because I was in that reuniting mode, like with Cox and Stellick.
Yep.
And Rowdens and Black. Like, I was kind of feeling it. And then, obviously this didn't happen.
There you go. There won't be a Gare and Brunt episode.
Again, quick hits, but Dave Bedini was here yesterday.
I can't believe what Dave Bedini said, by the way.
Which part?
I'm gobsmacked.
That you're an inspiration?
Yeah, like Dave.
Because he's 20 years older than you?
No, Dave never expressed any of that to me, so I don't know.
Because he really did light up when I said your name. He's like, yeah, like you are. But he did then, not to deflate you at all, but he also told me after the show, he told me, I was an inspiration to him. So maybe it's like on Seinfeld when Breathless.
Context. It's context.
Seriously. But he said that, like, this. Maybe I'm sharing a private moment, but he told me what I'm doing here, and he name checked some things I'm doing here was inspiring him. So, it doesn't mean that much that you inspired him, considering that. So. But he did say, ask him about Bobby Bond. So, before you react, this is me officially asking you about Bobby Bond as per Dave Bedini.
I can't tell that story until I talk to a lawyer. But there is, I think, at some point, a performance I'll be able to give, not a podcast I'll be able to do, where I can tell the stories that I can't tell on a podcast. And that will be one of them.
Is it? Now, let me ask you this. Bobby Bond is 86 years old.
Yes.
Are you allowed to tell the story should he ever make like the Queen and pass away?
I don't know.
By the way, I don't know the story, so I speak as a guy who has no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, probably it wouldn't be great. It would. I think legally I wouldn't be exposed, but I will find material out of that and that I can do in the right room. I can do that. On a podcast, I can't.
Okay, fair enough. I'm not going to rough you up. Once I had Todd Shapiro over here, and people thought I should be asking tougher questions about Blundell, and I just let it go because he didn't want to talk about it. Because I invited this guy in my house, and now he doesn't want to talk about something, and I'm going to move on.
Sure.
And I got notes. This is a long time ago in the history of Toronto Mike, if you know the history, which you might actually know. But the notes I was getting about how I accepted his, he didn't want to talk about something, and I didn't, press harder. And I always wonder, do they think it's like when they watch Law and Order?
Yeah.
And, Your Honor is whatever, and you're allowed to, pursue this line of questioning because you have a hostile witness. Is this what they think these conversations, I was going to pick him up by the scruff of his neck and I'd pin him against the wall and say, spill the beans about Blundell, you asshole. Really?
No. Have you seen that BBC interview program? The guy is like an attack dog on it, but that's podcasts aren't grilling, right? Podcasts.
But you're not a host. You're here. It's not like. I heard Wendy Mesley we were talking about Wendy Mesley started a podcast because she's no longer at CBC. I guess you might have heard that one. But
you're ahead of me in school, Wendy Mesley.
Really?
Yeah. But everyone was a year ahead of me because I was in school for so many years.
I'm going to ask you about a classmate in just 1 minute, actually.
Oh, God.
Where am I going to Wendy Mesley? Oh, yeah. So she's used to conversing with people who are don't want to be there, like some evil dictator or something. Yeah. Which is a very different dynamic than, hey, you want to drop by my home studio and have a 90-minute chat where I give you things. Anyway, I don't know how it got me on that. Oh, yeah, the Bobby Bond thing. So, okay, I won't make you tell me the Bobby Bond story.
Toronto Mike. I will tell it at Toronto Mike. How's that?
Oh, a TMLX event. Okay, that'll be my... Come to this event to hear the untold story of Bobby Bond. That's the story that Bobby Bond does not want you to hear.
Yeah. There is another story about another hockey player who I can't even name the name of, but it's a showstopper.
Wow.
It never ends. It is just when you think it's over, it's not over.
Okay. A little audio to set up my next line of questioning.
Here we go.
This is a chopped up Saturday Night Live weekend update thing, so bear with me.
I'm Norm Macdonald, and now the fake news. Well, it is finally official. Murder is legal in the state of California. Well, in a questionable move by the defense team this week, O.J. Simpson demonstrated how to stab two people at the same time. Testimony during the final week provided some spellbinding moments. In a brilliant move during closing arguments, Simpson attorney Johnny Cochran put on the knit cap prosecutors say O.J. wore the night he committed the murders. Although O.J. may have hurt his case when he suddenly blurted out, hey, easy with that. That's my lucky stabbing hat. Well, the trial of the century is over. Late yesterday, the fate of O.J. Simpson, the most famous murder suspect in United States history, was placed in the hands of the jurors. They must now decide whether to free him or get all their heads cut off. Our top story tonight. Following his shocking acquittal 2 weeks ago, O.J. Simpson vowed never to rest until the real killers of Nicole Brown Simpson are brought to justice. And the manhunt continues.
There's a picture of him golfing. You need the visual.
Meanwhile, this week, O.J. took girlfriend Paula Barbieri to see the erotic murder mystery Jade. Other moviegoers took the couple's presence in stride, though they did become uncomfortable when O.J. repeatedly shouted out, "You call that a stabbing?" The L.A. District Attorney's Office has given Marcia Clark and Christopher Darden bonuses of over $10,000 for, quote, lengthy hard time duty, unquote, in the O.J. Simpson case. A spokesman for the DA said that the prosecutor's bonuses would have been even higher, except for the fact that they let a killer go free.
Okay, since we last spoke, Norm Macdonald passed away.
He did.
So my question is, did you have any real-life interaction with the very funny Norm Macdonald?
Yes. And I think this came up when Ralph Benmergui was on one time, and you were asking him about staging comedy shows at Ryerson back in the early 80s. And Norm was among the comics, like a teenage Norm at that point, was among the comics. And I was a doorman at that bar. And I actually won the amateur stand-up contest and got to perform on a pro show, although not with Norm Macdonald. But yes, Norm came. Mike McDonald, who is a comedy legend, more appreciated by Canadian comics and known by the Canadian public. Kenny Robinson, who's still kicking around.
And an FOTM.
Yes, indeed. Glenn Foster, I guess, is a contemporary.
That Canadian guy.
Yes, they're of a certain age. We're all of a certain age. But and Ralph Benmergui was the host of and booker for the show at Ryerson.
Would you put John Wing Jr. in that list, or is he later?
I've never talked to John about that, and I've done shows recently with John. So he probably was. I just haven't tracked that back. But anyone who did Yucks back in the early 80s, they would come and do sets at Ryerson, like as a tune-up, like warming up in the bullpen before going and dropping their sets at Yucks. And so Sam Kinison was there. Like there were the headliners that came by and did this. So it was for the worst possible audience. Anyone who ever did that show would tell you there was, one side was all engineering students, the other side was all secretarial students, and they were just out to get a load on and not even knowing there was a comedy show going on. So it was a terrible, terrible comedy experience with like these future generational stars. I don't know if Jim Carrey ever did it. Someone said he did, and I don't remember that. But in my comedy instructor at Second City, Jim McAleese, was Norm's best friend, and they traveled across Canada doing dates in every whistle stop along the way. And I think they had some sort of falling out at some point, but I think that was mostly because Jim wanted to settle down and Norm was younger and wanted to go to Hollywood and wanted to take a shot in the States.
Right. The DM you got, is it a DM? You got
Yep.
Can you share? I follow you on the social media.
Yeah, so Norm Macdonald and we sort of connected in 2016 when I tweeted something about his memoir being wooden. And he took umbrage with this, but it was just like I was just being ironic or whatever, and just having a little sport with it. And
Right.
I don't know if he really took umbrage with it, but he made it sound like he did. Why would you say that it's wooden? It's the greatest memoir that's ever been written. Da, da, da. And I said, hey, Norm, just kidding around. I mean, I guess I could have played along if I was doing improv. It would be yes and
Right.
I would follow through on it. But then I thought, I'm risking getting blocked by Norm Macdonald. Like that would be a bad
and
place.
To be clear, this is in your DMs, right? This
Yes.
is not public Twitter. Okay.
Yes. And so, but we also, like he retweeted a whole bunch of things that
Like he knew who you were.
and I explained who I was, right? He didn't remember me. I remembered him, but he didn't remember me. Who remembers the doorman when you're a comic, right? Unless
Right.
you're jumped on stage or something like Dave Chappelle. But, so then we started going back and forth, on a weird semi-regular basis. And it was always like, it was 3:00 in the morning, Toronto time. I guess he's in LA. It's midnight, but
Right.
it was like late night DMing and remember this guy and,
You're
talking
pen
about
pals.
books and basically. But he, like other comics in Toronto, they would just see the retweets and replies to stuff, and they were like, "How the hell do you know Norm Macdonald?" Right?
Wow.
Like this was early comedy days for me.
Right.
I got an even later start in comedy than I did in journalism, but like these veteran comics, and they're saying, "Why is Norm Macdonald with his 1 million followers retweeting you? You lowly open micer."
Love it. Love it. All right. When I recently biked to the woodshed with my studio in my trailer, and then I chatted with some guy named Jim Cuddy
Yep.
from some bar band known as the Blue Rodeo. And one of the questions came from you
Yes.
about, so my question is, did you and Jim know each other at Upper Canada College?
No, we didn't. We missed. I think Jim's a year older than me. He wouldn't have been in the same grade.
Well, he looks good too then.
Oh, he's a freak that way. He is. I don't know what accounts for that, but yeah, Jim looks great. But I knew that Jim went there. He went there for 2 years. I went there for a year. And you know what I'll do? I was thinking about this on the way over because I knew that you would ask about this. I have a story about my year at UCC that I'll give to you for your page. I put it in the CBC literary competition, and it made the long list. Like out of 2,000 entrants, it made the top 30, but then I didn't get into the 5 finalists. So anyways,
I would be happy to publish that because I'll take all your stuff you can't sell because it's all amazing.
Because I like what I was when I was little, and I mean, I think I came to grips with this at age 16, but I was a master shoplifter.
Oh,
Right. And maybe at some point, I wouldn't say I was a little too calculated to.
right.
It wasn't really impulse.
It's not a impulse. It's just you enjoyed it.
No, that's right. And like I was excellent at it, and I think maybe that's a skill set that lends itself to stand up. But anyways, it was about a bit of shoplifting that I was looking to do at UCC, and it involved
Okay.
$1 million of artwork.
Holy moly. Okay, I can't wait to have that. Speaking of the great reads that you wrote that appeared on TorontoMike.com, I know that I just want to tell you, because we're live on the pirate stream, live.torontomike.com.
Am I on here?
You're on the air, so I'm careful what you say into these mics. Tobias Vaughn just pointed out that it was a great read, that your piece about Peter Robbins, and
thank you.
Moose Grumpy is actually there saying that more than that missing beer, LOL, she's actually looking forward to seeing you again because the FOTMs love you, man. And, partly because you're an active participant, not only in the chats that happen at live.torontomike.com, but in our not-so-secret DM group on Twitter. But you are absolutely a beloved FOTM, and people care about you.
Hall of Fame.
Maybe one day.
Yeah.
I got to talk to Peter Gross about that, but maybe one day.
I don't think I'm in the first class, right? It's
one day.
Yeah.
No promises, but it could happen for you. And I'm eager to get to these Audible series that you have.
Yes.
Let's do that now, actually,
okay.
Because I have clips, and then one of the clips will allow me to take a bio break, which is all part of the strategy here because I've been drinking coffee and beer all day. Okay. There's some behind the scenes action for everybody. That's how you know it's a podcast and it's not a hit on CBC. Badini comes over. He was telling me like 5 different like CBC morning shows to talk about his Summit 72 series that was on CBC last night, which I will check out on Gem because I was at Jay's game with my boy. By the way, my 8-year-old biked to the game and back. And
that is crazy.
Yeah, and my wife and my mother both said I was nuts for thinking that we could bike to that game. And I honestly, maybe, I don't know if it's because I'm a good father or a bad father, but I was like, give the boy some credit. Like, it's only, a 30K round trip, and I felt like he could do it or I wouldn't try, and he was fantastic. So shout out to Jarvis. Okay, which one do you want to tackle first? There are 2, of course. One is your voice with just those great Gare stories, like how to succeed. And you tell me the title of that one. How to succeed in sports writing?
How to succeed in sports writing without really trying.
Okay, so there's that series,
yes,
which is your voice,
yes,
and your great stories, and we got a taste of it here, of course. I feel like I was the demo grounds for some.
You were the catalyst. If I said the catalyst, that would sort of underrate my own role in this.
Sure,
but you were a catalyst.
I was one of the many. Okay, so and the other one, of course, we talked about how Dave Schultz is voicing. That's called Every Spring a Parade Down Bay Street.
Yes.
Okay, and he's the voice of Red York.
Red York.
I like that name, actually. It's a good name. Which one do you want to tackle first?
Let's do How to Succeed.
Okay. So maybe first tell the FOTMs, I've already established the FOTMs love Gare Joyce, and you tell a wicked-ass story, and you've got great stories. So what exactly is this series on Audible, How to Succeed in Sports Writing Without Really Trying?
Okay, I have to, again, you were a catalyst, but I would say the most significant catalyst for this, for me, was Connor Ratliff. Do you know Connor Ratliff? He does Dead Eyes.
So. I don't think so.
He does a podcast called Dead Eyes, and it's it ran for 3 seasons, and it was about how he lost a role that he had been given the green light on. He'd lost a role in Band of Brothers because Tom Hanks said he had dead eyes.
Wow.
And he did 30 episodes about this. Diving down into what it's like to be an actor and a character actor and struggle, and how all these crazy little interactions that he was working after the fact. He was working in a bookstore where Tom Hanks was doing a signing and things, like he was being haunted.
Wow. And
in the final episode, Tom Hanks appeared on it, and Tom Hanks, it's really worth listening to. Check out Dead Eyes. I was completely addicted to it during COVID, and I thought, what could I do like Dead Eyes? And Dead Eyes was an examination of the life of a character actor, the ups and the mostly downs. And I thought, the life of a sports writer, like, people read the stories but don't really get a sense of the stories that go on behind the stories. I think that was actually Michael Farber's blurb on it.
Right. Another FOTM.
So I had pitched this as a podcast to Sportsnet, and they just weren't doing much with it. Although the one story that I wrote a pilot episode And it's a story of, on my first travel assignment, I grabbed Tom Landry by the arm and pulled him to pose for a picture with Chris Schultz.
Right.
So I physically assaulted a Hall of Fame NFL football coach. So they loved that, but they just couldn't get rolling on a podcast. So I just posted the story on Facebook, and 2 days later, I got a message from Audible saying, "Do you have a book of these?" And
wow,
that's how I just posted that on Facebook. Like, just, I wanted to get it out of my system.
Yeah.
Not to monetize it, anything. It's like,
to release it in the wild. Like, there's some catharsis in just putting it into the public realm.
Yeah. And then 4 days later, I have a deal in principle with Audible.
Wow.
Which is crazy. That's not how it happens.
So, okay, so some nuts and bolts questions.
Sure.
And I am going to play a clip here so I can escape. But
Sure.
what is the, what's the length? Like how much audio with these great stories do you get? And then where do you buy this?
There are, I think there's 26 chapters that run 8.5 hours. And it is my starting out in the bit, my being interested in sports writing as a kid, getting a first job, weird things that went on along the way. Actually, one time when I actually am reduced to reliving my kleptomaniac youth, and I was trying to steal my way into a scoop. But yeah, various fuck ups and screw ups, and
I feel like that's
pratfalls, and
Marty York used to do that. Am I right?
Well, I'm not talking about stealing copy.
All right. Is that true that Red York is just taking Marty York and combining him with Red Fisher?
It didn't even occur to me. I thought like the city of York.
Yeah, Muddy York.
Fort
right.
York.
Right.
All
that was our old name. Yeah.
Yeah. And
when you were just a kid.
Maybe that's where Marty got it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is a fake name. That's right. Okay, so this clip I pulled though, this is when you go to Audible and you want to hear the the teaser before you pay. Yeah. It is 5 minutes long. Do you want me to play the whole thing?
You can do that.
Let's play the whole thing. Okay, so I'm actually going to mute you during this.
You can mute me. You can grab me a beer.
We can do stretches and I'll get you a beer. Here we go.
On our last night in Santo Domingo, Guerrero hosted a dinner to hand out awards, toast winners, and have a few laughs. He gave the award for the best camper to Reverend Bob. At 50, he had lost a lot, but still had enough left over to be the best among us. We all thought he was the right pick. Well, all of us with one entirely predictable exception. My seat at dinner was beside Rambo's, and I tried to make small talk. Maybe when we get back to Toronto, all of us can get together and go to a game, I said, not as cheerfully or sincerely as I'm making it sound. You guys can come see me in St. Catharines, Rambo said. That took me off guard. I thought you were from Etobicoke, I said. I am, he said, but I'm going to be playing in St. Catharines this summer. That sent my mind spinning like Steve Carlton's slider. At first, I thought he was talking about a beer league team in St. Catharines. Then I realized he meant the St. Catharines Blue Jays, the big team's affiliate in the New York Penn League. I got to find out what they want me to do to get into shape, he said. It seems like a waste flying back to Toronto when I could just go straight to Florida. This was no joke. Rambo thought he had earned a contract with the Jays on his performance in those fantasy camp games. There was a loud thud behind me. John Mayberry laid supine on the barroom floor. I feared Big John had fainted, but no, he was in fact laughing. He had overheard my conversation with Rambo and lost all bodily control, his legs folding under him. "Goddamn Rambo," he said. The trainer, who had been ministering to our wounds all week, ran over to Mayberry and, thinking he was having a heart attack, started pounding on his chest. I wasn't up to breaking the news to Rambo that this fantasy camp wasn't a tryout or anything like that. "Yeah, I'll definitely come to see you play," I said before bolting. A few minutes later, though, I overheard Rambo buttonholing Guerrero. Spring training is only a couple of weeks away. I thought I could stay here and train. I know that I'm looking at short season to start, but even if it's rookie league and medicine hat, I don't mind. Rambo had toxic self-confidence, a self-belief that would have made Ted Williams look insecure. He probably avoided talking about a signing bonus only because he knew I was eavesdropping and didn't want to read about it in the papers. Guerrero tried to let Rambo down softly. Remember in Bull Durham when the manager breaks the bad news to Crash Davis? This is the toughest job a manager has. The organization wants to make a change. Well, the toughest job Epi Guerrero ever had was delivering a dose of reality to Rambo. The organization has decided not to make a change, and we're sticking with Fred McGriff and Cecil Fielder, or something like that. Rambo couldn't believe that he hadn't landed a contract. You're making a big mistake, he said, like he had to fight off offers and he'd take a haircut to play in his hometown. That left me to wonder what Rambo thought about us. If he was thinking that this was an actual tryout camp, then he'd have to believe we were the crazy ones, as if we had no business in a showcase for a major league team. I couldn't even hold a bat. The next morning, we picked up our tickets at the airport. Our group took up 3 rows on our flight, and, luck of the draw, I drew the seat next to Rambo. What followed were 3 of the most awkward hours in my professional career, rife with them. Our conversation went back and forth. Once. Pretty amazing experience, I said sunnily. You can't look good at this type of thing without real players around, he said. FFS is the appropriate acronym. He was blaming us, more to the point, me, for the Jays not offering him a contract. I hurt too much to laugh. As it turned out, that was the first and last Blue Jays fantasy camp in the DR. The organizers might have feared Rambo would sign up to take another run at a major league contract. I don't know if the legend of Rambo made the rounds, but it can't be a coincidence that it's now standard policy for fantasy camps to have a minimum age of 25.
And now you can crack open your Great Lakes beer. I made Gare wait.
I'll get it right
on the mic though,
time.
like right in front of it.
All
yeah.
right.
There you go. You can teach an old dog new tricks. Okay, good. Yeah. So how to succeed?
This is how you get electrocuted on stage, right?
Yeah. At TMLXX, I had to touch the mic before I spoke into it because you got a little shock out of the mics. Shout out to Al Grego who did a great job. Other than the fact he almost electrocuted Blair Packham and everybody. But okay. You did a great job. How to succeed in sports writing without really trying. Audible series. So you go to just audible.com and search Gare. That's what I did. I go audible.com and just search Gare Joyce.
Audible, yes. Audible.ca in Canada. Audible.com.
I think it might flip. Yeah, but
it flips over automatically.
Flips over, I think, if your IP address is in Canada. But that's amazing. That's amazing because you tell a great story. You got great stories. But then you have this every spring a parade down Bay Street. What's the background on this? Like, I happen to be like, I feel like I have like a inside perspective on this because I've seen, like, I know there would be live shows of this, and I know you'd get like Hebsy to play a role in these different people, maybe Kevin McGran and such. I'm not sure. Yeah. But tell me what this is.
You know what? Someone asked me the other day how I started to write it, and I can't actually remember how it happened. That I was just a character, a voice. I didn't know what I would do with it. I think what it was a nod to National Lampoon. Like I collect. Okay. I've got like the first 5 years in all the annuals of National Lampoon, and they did a one issue where John Kennedy lives and Jackie dies.
Right,
it's like an alternative history.
Right,
and in that, the Washington Senators are the repeat World Series champs. That was my inspiration for it. And I thought, everyone thinks that every spring a parade down Bay Street is a a satire of the Leafs. I think of it as a satire of the Leafs sports writing in Toronto. And if you know Toronto,
Right.
there
it's very
are
clever.
1,000 inside jokes. It's like SCTV, like
Yeah.
that, where they use real Toronto addresses.
Right. Right.
You know, where you know that Earl Camber is Earl Cameron, right? You know, Floyd Robertson. You know, like people in Toronto get that. Every spring in Parade Down Bay Street was a play at the voice of a blowhard sports writer who's covered a Leaf team that has won the Stanley Cup every year since 1967. And Toronto, through an act of a Pope's blessing and UNESCO designating the entire city as a heritage site, Toronto is exactly the same at this point in time as it was in 1967. And I pulled for the ebook version, which you can find somewhere on the internet. I pulled all these City of Toronto photos from back in that era, right? And you know, showing the it's the construction of City Hall. I talk about them demolishing City Hall, right? But anyways, I have all this vintage images from the city archives,
Right.
and it's a bit of a love letter to Toronto that doesn't exist anymore. And maybe that's a piece with me moving to Kingston, right? Is that I love the city
As it was?
as it was,
Right.
you know.
Right.
I mean, yeah. You don't need the text to listen to the podcast or to listen to the audiobook. You know, and the other thing coming out of it is that we're going to try and spin this into a weekly or bi-weekly short pod with a few Toronto comics and Schultz voicing Red York.
Yeah, so Schultz did a great job, as I said. Like, just, really rose to the challenge, and he was exceptional. I'm trying to, I don't know, this is also quite long. How many chapters? Do you remember how long is the every parade? Every spring a parade down Bay Street.
Every spring a parade down Bay Street isn't that long. It's 5 hours long. It feels a lot longer when Schultz sings on it. He does a version, a Leaf Leaf-inspired version of "Thanks for the Memories" by Bob Hope, which in the ebook was a sight gag. I had a picture of Bob Hope, circa 1955,
right,
in a Toronto Maple Leafs jacket.
Wow!
So it was entirely a sight gag, and when I came in. I only came in for one day of recording with Schultz, but I timed it so that I'd be in when he was going to have to try singing. And it was so incredibly painful because he didn't know the song, "Thanks for the Memories," right? I'm like, "Thanks for the memories of being here with you."
Have him go to YouTube and
so the next day, the next day of recording, his wife, Yvonne, bless her,
a saint.
Saint
Yvonne.
She deserves so much better. She coached him on it, and so it's better. It's better than it was. I wouldn't say that it's good, but it was incredibly painful. And funnily enough, I recorded it. I have a video of it that I will post. I will offer it to you as well.
Send that over.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to play all 5 minutes.
No.
But we're going to get a taste of this. And you're unmuted for this, so real-time commentary is acceptable. Here we go.
It was chaos on Front Street. Mackenzie Porter, a defender of all that was right and traditional, was accusing hippies trying to start up a union of committing arson. Hedda Hopper of Toronto's hoi polloi, a certain GG, whose name in this book has been deleted on advice of legal counsel,
That's true.
emerged from a closed-door meeting with city editor Ed Monteith and had somehow lost her stockings in transit. Her dress was unzipped. On the Front Street sidewalk, the ME, J.D. McFarlane, did a quick head count, and determined that not all were present and accounted for. I looked about. My sports editor was still in the building, and so were most of the department staff. "I'm going in," I yelled. Mr. McFarland tried to hold me back, but not too hard. The smoke was thick and toxic. Thankfully, because of my copyboy duties, I had an innate sense of the layout of the newsroom. I always claimed I could navigate the Telegram's Action Central with my eyes closed, and this was now the case. In retrospect, it was probably a good thing that I couldn't see my beloved newsroom in flames. It would have been a scene that made the least attractive precinct of hell look bucolic by comparison. I rooted around and made it to the sports editor's office. Though he probably had 50 pounds on me, I hoisted him into a fireman's carry position. I heard him murmur. At first I presumed it was a muted cry for help, but I then recognized it as the first few bars of Melancholy Baby. I carried him down a set of stairs to the safety of the sidewalk, to the applause and cheers of the Telegram staff. I did not acknowledge them, however, didn't so much as pause. Instead, I tore back into the building and climbed the stairs back into the newsroom. I dragged reporters 2 at a time to the stairwell. Hard to tell whether they had succumbed to the smoke, to cheap gin, or a combination of the two. There wasn't a moment to waste, so instead of carrying them, I just gently rolled them down the stairs. 2, 4, 6, 8 of them in all. I realized at that point there was nothing more that I could do. I knew that there were others trapped in the newsroom, but they might already be gone, and there was no point to being reckless.
I don't want to fade this
When I
down. I'm
emerged
enjoying it,
during
but
the last
it's good
pair of
stuff.
the
Anyway,
stairwell,
I
the fire department
would put it
still
on when I
hadn't
went for
shown
bike
up,
rides,
but
and
a telegram
yeah, a lot of like
photographer was there
inside
to
jokes
see
and
the
a lot of
First paper to come
subtle
out
jokes, I would call
instead of
them,
black
where
and
you're
white.
just
One of the aspects of every spring is that there's only one surviving newspaper in town, and it's the Toronto Telegram.
right.
And this hack sports writer, well cast with Schulte, is the lead columnist at the Telegram, and all the great sports writers are out of work, and Dick Beddoes is peddling newspapers at a newsstand at Carlton and Yonge, and
Well done, Mr. Joyce. So again, everybody who wants to get their hands on these 2 great audio series, you just go to Audible and search for Gare Joyce's name, and they'll come up. But both great and both pretty fresh, and you should be proud of yourself. These are great efforts.
what I would say is it's so much fun to do bad writing, right? And really, like every spring a parade down Bay Street. It's just me being as bad as I can for as long as I can. It's a commitment, as they would say in comedy.
Now, before we play some lowest of the low, 2 founding members, by the way, on together tomorrow, and that means Ron Hawkins and Stephen Stanley will be here together. Assuming it's Stephen Stanley, I'll have to make sure it's not Gare Joyce sneaking back in here since he's in town. But story today in sports, if you have a reaction, Roger Federer has announced his retirement from professional tennis.
What I do remember, going back to like early days at a Canadian Open, and this is like so far back, when you think that his career goes back to when cell phones weren't readily available.
Right.
I was at a payphone at the Canadian Open, like in the tent area, like sectioned off for media and authorized personnel, and like the 4th person in line for the payphone was Roger Federer. He like, I am pretty sure, cell phones are hard to get, but like someone there would have had it.
What year is this?
God, is it like 2001 or something?
We're running out of athletes that we can go back to that era with. Like, I'm now thinking like LeBron James has been playing 20 years now, and he's a little later than that. But yeah, we're running very low on these, excluding golfers, of course, who seem to just play forever. But like, it's not too many guys left from that era that are still. Albert Pujols is calling it. I think he's a guy who goes way back, obviously, but there's not many left.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that he's ending it somewhat on his own terms. Maybe this isn't the best time to go out. His last major title, maybe that would have worked out. But he earned the right to stick around, and he made tennis better. He made events more interesting while he was there.
Well, hell of a player, and by all accounts, hell of a person. Like, what more do you want?
Yeah, absolutely. He is. You just wish that every major athlete that you dealt with sort of had his set of principles, but he was amazing to watch. Like, he's a guy who ran and made no sound, right? Like, he was sort of mysterious in his own way.
Another announcement that came earlier this summer, Serena Williams. And my question for you is a loaded one. We'll see how you handle this, Mr. Joyce. But
she walked back her retirement on Good Morning America this morning.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So this is breaking news. So we might see more Serena.
Yeah. She was like, "Yeah, you're retired," and she's like, "Yeah, who knows?" Right? Like,
that's like, yeah, but that sounds like a Tom Brady retirement.
Yeah.
How many times
she cited him, as a matter of fact.
Well, he's a great example of a guy. We all on Twitter were talking about how Tom Brady had retired, and then last I checked, he played last week. Okay, Serena Williams, though, is she and I'm curious because I'm gonna throw in a guy. I don't know. Are you friendly with Arash Madani? Is he a guy you know? Okay. Arash Madani kind of got in some Twitter trouble, I call it, because it's not like real trouble, but it's Twitter trouble, because he, during the Serena Williams being the GOAT thing everybody was buying into, he pointed out that Steffi Graf had one less major in like half the years or something and had a much higher win percentage than Serena, and he was and I don't know, he just said, she kind of quietly disappeared at the age of 31. So she didn't get, like, she's not often called the GOAT. Serena's called the GOAT. What say you, Gare Joyce, who follows sports and is a smart man? And there's no answer to this. I'm just curious. Is Serena Williams the greatest of all time when it comes to women playing tennis? Should we be talking about Steffi Graf in that conversation? What do you think?
I think it's probably more crowded than I think it's more crowded than just Steffi Graf. I mean, I would put Navratilova and Margaret Court, but it's not that the games change; they're just different games. Like, I mean, Bjorn Borg was playing with a wooden racket, right?
I remember his comeback. He tried to bring
come
him
back
with
a wooden racket. That's not, you're not playing the same game. So, would Serena Williams thrive in any era? Yes. Would Steffi Graf, if she came along now, would she thrive? I'm sure. But a dream match, you'd love to see it. Those two. Steffi Graf probably would have won a couple fewer majors if Monica Seles didn't get stabbed.
Right.
I remember covering the Canadian Open where Seles came back, her first tournament back, and won that tournament. And it looked like she had Graf's number when she got stabbed by a delusional German weirdo.
Yeah. Scary shit.
Yeah.
Scary shit. Quick final thought for me is that I'm running for Terry Fox on Sunday. So that we're recording this on a Thursday. So September, I don't know what that is. September 18th, I think. I'm at High Park. And on torontomike.com, there's a link at the top called, I think it says Terry, and you can click that and pledge my run. Give what you can. The money does not go to me, but I guess you but you get a tax receipt and everything. You can do that. And Gare Joyce, man, you're a great FOTM, so keep us abreast with what's happening in your career, which ain't over, but I'm sorry to hear that you're no longer at Sportsnet.
Are we recording part 2 now?
And that brings us to episode 1111 of Toronto Mic'd. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Toronto Mike. Gare, are you at Gare? What are you? Gare Joyce NHL?
Yes.
That's you got to update that, I feel. I don't know. You're more than
That's
just NHL.
left over from ESPN.
Okay.
I had 2,000 followers and I'd only tweeted twice at ESPN.
That's the value of those four letters. Okay. Our friends at Great Lakes Brewery, as Gare enjoys his
I am
second
having it
lager.
right now.
It's great, eh? I really enjoy it. Fresh craft beer brewed right here in southern Etobicoke, but you can find them at LCBOs across this fine province. They're at Great Lakes Beer. Palma Pasta's at Palma Pasta. There's a vegetarian lasagna for Gare. Sticker U is at Sticker U. Electronic Products Recycling Association, or at EPRA_Canada. Ridley Funeral Home, or at Ridley FH. You got your flashlight there. And Canna Cabana, you got your Canna Cabana cozy. Bring that home to your wife. She can enjoy that.
I'm putting it on right now.
They're at Canna Cabana _. See you all tomorrow. It's a doubleheader. So in the morning, we've got Ron Hawkins, Stephen Stanley, and Chris Brown from the Bourbon Tabernacle Choir. Well, that last guy is. The first two guys are from Lowest of the Low. And then in the afternoon, John Biner makes his Toronto Mike debut.
Loving it.
Bizarre.
Loving it.
See you all then.
Well, I've been told that there's a sucker born every day, but I wonder who. Yeah, I wonder who. Maybe the one who doesn't realize there's 1,000 shades of gray. 'Cause I know that's true. Yes, I do. I know it's true. Yeah, I know it's true. How about you? Are they picking up trash and they're putting down roads? And they're brokering stocks, the class struggle explodes. And I'll play this guitar just the best that I can.